Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Press Play Podcast. My name's Rob, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael. Michael, this is our second time trying this. How you doing?
Hey, you know what? Just a little bit better than I was doing last time, so that's all that matters.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, for those who are watching or listening, we had a little technical difficulties. And so hopefully nothing happens again, because if something happens again, we're just completely just not going to do this. But other than that, guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to us and watching us on YouTube or on podcast feeds. If you guys enjoy what you watch, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and comment in the video to let us know what your thoughts are, because we're going to be talking about Blade Runner, the 1982 movie. I think that's right.
Some would say the best Blade Runner. I don't know.
Some would say that.
Some would say that.
Some would say that.
A little controversy, huh? Let me go on a little sprinkle of the controversy in there, you know?
Hey, we got to sprinkle it in. Hold their appetite until we get to the actual.
That's it. We're giving you some waters and maybe some breadsticks, and that's it. This is what you're all getting from us right now.
Exactly. We are the servers in the back that literally we only had this job just to buy weed, and so we really do not care. We really don't care. We can't take our time. Okay.
That's it.
So without further ado, I said this is Press Play, but actually this is guys, ready for it? This is a Press Rewind podcast. Thank you, Michael, for the sound effects. Thank you.
I was off the soundboard.
Right off the soundboard. Let's get right into it. So, Michael, from the last podcast to this point, let us know what you watched. The last audio that we just did right now, it literally broke down as you were talking about what you were watching. So I know. Let us know what you were watching.
The system didn't like my analysis on the Book of Boba Fett. Apparently, exactly. It was Team Rob. I think honestly, you just closed the browser is what happened. As soon as I started talking about it, I think you're over it.
Yeah,
you didn't want to hear it.
I just stopped recording.
Wrong answer.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I just gave it away. So yeah, I've been going through some life changes, good ones for the most part. Just started a new job. I know you guys don't really care about that on this podcast, but I figured I'd just give some context as to my lack of movies I've been watching. So that's my poor man's excuse this time around. What I was going to say is I think Book of Boba Fett just finished wrapping up just a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week or the week before that. Overall, and I will preface this because Robert has very disgusting, gross, controversial opinions about the Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. I will say that there was definitely some very goofy ass parts in the show. Mostly the Voltron / Power Rangers mod hipster guys on the bikes. Definitely, could have done with that. There's literally a guy in a trench coat. I don't know if you remember seeing him in the show. There's literally a guy in a trench coat. I was like, it's hot. You're on Tatooine. There's two suns, and you're walking around in a trench coat. Like it's like, I don't know, man. It's like Lollapalooza or something. Just goofy stuff, man. But I thought Tamora Morrison's performance was pretty rock solid as Boba Fett. I always love just seeing him on screen. He's really good at what he does. Just literally captures the character really well. I really enjoyed the backstory as well. I think a lot of people had some controversy about that. People didn't really like the backstory as much, but I actually thought it was cool that we actually got a shot of him crawling out of the Sarlacc pit and, just being left out to die in the desert, and then, being taken in by the Tusken Raiders and so on and so forth. I think it just builds up the giant mythos of Boba Fett as a character. It also shows him kind of changing as a person as well, because it definitely seems like he just, after his time with the Tusken Raiders, he was kind of changing, turning a new leaf, trying to be more of a down to earth kind of guy, even though he's kind of like trying to take over the Tatooine underground from the Hutts and everybody else in between.
Right.
But yeah, I think a lot of the goofiness you gotta take hand in salt, because basically, you have Robert Rodriguez, right? No relation to the gentleman on. Robert Rodriguez Sr. Excuse me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen his movies? I mean, yes, he has mariachi. He's done really solid movies, but he's also done like Spy Kids and Spy Kids 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like,
That's all I know him for.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's you're gonna expect that. I expected that. I was actually more surprised of some of the stuff he did. I thought it was gonna be goofier once I saw him that he was directing, but I thought he did a really good job. I
Yeah.
think there was just some of that Robert Rodriguez flair in there, with the Power Ranger bikes and stuff like that. It's just very much him. I thought the Thundercat cameo was pretty dope. I was like, wait, you know who Thundercat is, right, Rob?
I
No
guess I
idea.
totally I guess I didn't catch that one. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. He's a rapper, a musician.
Oh,
He's
okay.
he's the guy with the golden dreads.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Thundercat. What's he doing here? He's just decided to stop by Tatooine and just fixing people up. I was like, that's pretty snazzy.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. They had some really cool cameos. Danny Trejo was in there. He was the
He was.
the Rancor ringleader guy, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was just cool, man, because usually he's a very like commandeering character or person or actor, I should say. Anytime he's on screen, he just really takes command of the scene, and he's usually the most badass person in the room. And honestly, he was there with Boba Fett, and definitely give him a run for his money. Um, also you got to take into account we got a couple of episodes with the Mandalorian in, which honestly I
Yeah.
thought those were pretty sick. I thought the new ship is sick. I don't know how you feel about the ship, Robert, but I thought the throwback to one of my favorite ships, the Naboo Starfire, was on
Yes.
point. Definitely
Yes.
love that.
Loved it.
Probably not going to be a bathroom in there, but we'll figure out the semantics of that later. That's not a thing we're worrying about now. As long as it looks cool, drives
It's a
fast.
catheter.
Yeah, exactly. It just goes directly into him. It's basically the Nissan Altima of space, is what it is. He's
Exactly.
going to be doing 85 in a school zone, probably kill some kids. That's all right. At least as long as it looks cool. He's going
Yeah,
to
exactly.
fly right off the windshield.
Exactly.
But yeah, overall, I'm pretty hyped about it. It was pretty dope. And honestly, just gets me more excited for some more Mandalorian. I will throw in that I did like the Luke cameo. I
Hmm.
do think I thought it was pretty good. I thought they did a better job than they did with season 2 of the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I thought the CGI looked a lot better.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it didn't look as cheese. I do think that Disney needs to start moving away from relying on these characters so much, and start bringing in some more people to kind of just start breaking away,
Yes.
kind of get on with the healing process. So
Yeah.
we're not going to keep reselling our childhood 7 different ways. So I think
Exactly.
I think they need to like move on and start really developing their characters and stuff. But that's my 2 cents, Robert. I'm ready. I'm going to go ahead and plug my ears, and you can go ahead and say what you're going to say about the book of Boba Fett.
Here's what I wrote on Facebook. Okay, when I finished the entire show, I gotta say, I started it and I really forced myself to finish the show, and I binged because I watched the first episode and I was like, I cannot do this, and then right before the last episode aired, I was like, I got to finish it, and so I binged the entire season up to the finale. Then I watched the finale on the day that it was released, and so I really tried my best. I want to let everybody know when I first started watching The Mandalorian when it first came out. I couldn't get through it. But it wasn't until a year later when season 2 was about to release when I tried again, and then I loved it. And it kind of clicked for me what they were trying to do with that
Mm,
show. But with this one, here's what I wrote. I said, honestly, I didn't like the Book of Boba Fett, was very uninteresting, and didn't care for any of his story. The mods bikers were such a horrible addition. And guys, just recast Luke Skywalker, get Sebastian Stan or someone else, and get rid of the horrible Reese Speaker voice. That wasn't even Mark Hamill's voice. That was a computer generated AI voice. That was the voice for Luke. Like, it wasn't
wait,
even a voice
seriously?
actor. Yeah, it wasn't even a voice
That
actor.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought that was pretty sick because I was like,
Really?
you would think his voice would have. Yeah, I'm gonna differ from here.
Wow.
I thought it was pretty seamless. I thought it was pretty impressive. I think they did way better with the CGI this time around.
Yes.
And I thought it was like an impersonator or something, or they like de-aged Mark Hamill's voice, which I don't even know if that's a thing you can do technology wise. But I was like, that's pretty cool how they did that. And you gotta have that Mickey Mouse money to be able to do something like that, because I
Oh,
was like, that's
definitely.
pretty impressive, how they
Definitely.
were able to do that. But nope, go ahead.
So I finish out by saying the moment Cad Bane showed up, he brought this level of tension that the show really needed. I wanted more of him. And then Mando is 10 times more interesting, and I actually care when he's on screen. Anyways, that's all I got to say. I really forced myself to watch this and wasn't easy. I'm hopeful for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and Andor show. So I just want to let this be known. I don't think the show is bad overall. I think a lot of people that are hating on certain aspects of the show just do not understand. Like a lot of it is like throwbacks to some Robert Rodriguez stuff. And so people are like, what was that? What was that whole twirl in the city to do the shoot? I thought that was corny as heck. I respect the fact that it was a callback to one of his older films, but like there's callbacks, but like if it makes sense throughout the entire like the tone of the show, then that makes sense. That didn't make sense for me in that spot. I have a couple of problems. The few problems I have is this. I think as people who watch Star Wars, the movies, okay, the TV shows that have barely started popping up, like the cartoons, I know that they're canon to an extent, but like not everyone watches those. And so they're betting on creating a new universe and stuff. Everyone knows Boba Fett to be the quiet, bounty hunter. And let's be honest, we never really knew much of him or saw much of him in the original trilogy. He was very like here or there. And so when we see him in the show from the very beginning acting good, I'm kind of like,
What?
can we at least see him be bad first so I can see the transition? Because we have not been able to really get that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there's something missing, and they had to jump
Mm.
really fast to get to the good Boba Fett before we can actually get the bad Boba Fett. Would you agree
I
or no?
think I do agree. Actually, it's a very good point, Robert. I actually haven't thought about that because it doesn't. I think what you're looking for, it's not earned. This
Yes,
redemption arc is not earned. It's
exactly.
definitely there. There hasn't been enough character development as Boba Fett as a character. Boba Fett. I think I said Boba Feet for a second. That's kind of gross. Boba Fett, as a character, we haven't seen him really do anything necessarily evil.
Yes.
Like you said, I know the cartoons, the Clone Wars, kind of gives a little more pretext to like his character and his upbringing. To give you some like context, I didn't even know this until I did some research, but apparently Cad Bane was like a mentor figure to
Yes.
Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was like,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I didn't know that. I was like, that's a lot more substance to that. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of assumptions that the show kind of throws at you as a fan to kind of just expect to know.
Right.
And to be fair, like the Clone Wars, I'm not pooping on it. I honestly want to go watch the Clone Wars now after watching Boba Fett because I feel like there's so much context that I'm missing. That in the Mandalorian as well. But it's just like you're asking people to come in with 5 seasons worth of knowledge from a show that's been out since like we were kids. You know what I mean? That's a
Exactly.
lot. That is a massive ask. You know what I mean? In the world of filmmaking, I think Star Wars can get away with that sometimes, but not every time. And then if you're like a brand new filmmaker doing this, like that's not going to happen. That's impossible. It's like that's never heard of. That's just
Right. Right.
imagine watching Dune and there was like none of that context beforehand, like the books or anything like that. Like imagine they try to sell the books
Exactly.
in front of you. You'd be like, what did I just watch? This is like
Yeah.
such a weird movie. And even then, I still think it's a big ask. That's why it's so hard to adapt to film Dune because it's just so much stuff there that you have to kind of feed your audience. So I'm not going to get into Dune again. We're not going to backpedal into that. But I agree with you. I think that there should have been at least more context. I wanted to see more Camino stuff, to be honest. I wanted to see more of
Dude.
past, Boba Fett before we got to where we were at. I like the whole Tusken Raiders. I feel like all that stuff was
I
great and
did.
everything.
I did.
You
I
did like
did.
the
I did
Tusken
like
Raiders.
it. It was a completely different look. Like again, the Tusken Raiders, we saw them from the very first movie, dude. And after
Right.
so many years of seeing these random characters, we get an entirely brand new look at them. I enjoyed that. I thought that was a really, really cool idea.
100%. I will say I'm a little bit on the opposite when it comes to Cad Bane. I kind of thought it was a little,
Okay.
it was a little silly. As soon as I saw him, it just saw this big blue guy with red eyes. I was like, oh boy, oh, they really brought this man from the cartoon world into real life. I was like, all right, okay, but I agree. Character design aside, I thought I did think he was a little goofy looking, but character design aside, I thought he was a very threatening villain, I guess.
Yes.
It did bring that tension in. I do agree with you. And if you have that context from the show, you kind of see what their dynamic is. So that kind of even more tension. I
Totally.
personally didn't get that far into the show growing up to remember their dynamic very well, but I know that that was a thing. yeah, so I think there's a lot of ups and downs overall with the show. I did like the episode, particularly with Dallas Bryce Howard. That was episode 4, where he's kind of like in the butcher shop. I don't know what it's
Yes.
officially called. I thought she did a magnificent job. That was a great episode. I was like, honestly, I was like, I want to see a movie directed by her through and through, like a Star Wars movie. I thought that would be like ridiculously awesome because I think she
Yeah,
nailed the feel and kind of the vibe of Star Wars as a whole.
I agree.
So that hands down, probably one of my favorite episodes from that season. Um, and hopefully, Robert, hopefully, you'll come and see the light. Hopefully, just hope the book of Boba Fett just sits in your stomach, ferments like a nice fine wine after a while,
Okay.
and then you come back and revisit it.
Yeah,
Give it
yeah,
the
yeah,
appreciation that it deserves.
I would like to end off on this, and for everything that I have to say regarding the Book of Boba Fett.
Sure.
A couple things. There's a couple things I want to just get hit real quick. Everyone that's talking about that Bryce Dallas Howard episode, like, oh, this was the best one. I agree. I thought it looked amazing. The direction was awesome. Everyone that was like the episode that she directed for The Mandalorian was also good. You were a bunch of liars. That episode sucked. That episode sucked. But she got much better into whatever her vision was. But this episode that she directed in the Book of Boba Fett, really, really good. Loved it.
Well, hold on. Let me hit the.
Go for it.
What episode are we talking here, real quick?
Oh, it's the one. Oh my goodness, dude! I think it's season 1 of the Mandalorian. It is when Mando first meets what's that woman? The one that got canceled. I forgot her name. He meets her for the first
Cara
time.
Dune?
Yes, there we go. It's when he first meets her, and they're fighting against the AT-AT walkers, or they're facing against the walkers. That episode,
I know what you're talking about.
Hated that episode.
That's kind of like a filler episode because it's
It
just
most
kind of like the.
definitely is. It most definitely is.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Dallas. You're on your own on that one.
I will say that in regards to the whole Luke thing, I get this feeling they're treating Luke like he's Jesus. Like
basically, yeah.
they need to recast him at this point. The reason why the deep fake is so much better is because they literally hired a dude from YouTube who did a better deepfake of the scene in The Mandalorian than Disney did. So they hired him, and he did a phenomenal job. Just the fact that the deepfake looked that good is unbelievable. And big kudos to the guy that they hired and the team who did that. That's awesome. But I gotta say, stop with the deepfakes. I'm not even saying get Sebastian Stan because I know everyone's like, he looks like him. He kind of does, but just get anybody. And I just have to say, in regards to the whole respeecher digital thing, I'm not a big fan of it because that's taking a job away from somebody who's actually a good voice actor who can literally do the voice of Luke. But we're getting computers that are taking everybody's jobs. I want to support voice actors out there, and they need to stop with this whole digital voice thing. Like, just get someone in there who can actually do a good job. There was moments before they even said that it was a respeecher program that I was like, dude, Luke is talking very weird. There's certain flows in his voice where it wasn't keeping the tone perfectly, and I was like, "There's something weird about this. I just can't put a pin on it." And then I think Dave Filoni came out and said, "Yeah, it's they were using a respeecher thing," which people were at the time were kind of like, "Oh, that's crazy good," and it is for what it is, but it still doesn't feel like there's heart to it. And then my last thing that I want to say is when Cad Bane came out, I felt like that was the tension that the entire show needed. I didn't feel like there was any tension throughout the entire thing because when you go to the thing in the past and it's showing Boba Fett with the Tusken Raiders and then it shows the present, I don't feel any like nothing's gonna happen to him because I know he survives. There's no tension in the moment. And until Cad Bane came out,
sense.
and the moment Cad Bane came out, and this character that, again, I never watched the Clone Wars series, so I know there's a bunch of videos, people freaking out when they saw him pop out, which is awesome. I'm glad that you had that moment. When he came out, I was like, dude, this is awesome. Like, this turned into this Western feel on Tatooine, which I'm already sick and tired of Tatooine. Get off Tatooine. But it gave this Western feel to the show that was like, if this was like this the entire time, like this fight between Cad Bane and Boba Fett from the beginning to the end or whatever, between Mando or whatever, that would have been awesome. And hopefully we see that in season 2 because let's face it, Cad Bane, he's not dead. He's alive. So that's all I have to say.
Dude, you calling it?
Oh, he's alive, dude. His heart was his heart was beeping, man.
This man's calling it. I don't know, man. He looked pretty blueberried on the ground there.
He sure was. He sure was.
He was pretty blueberried. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying for the most part. Um, I'll finish this as well. This is going to turn into a Star Wars podcast really quick, but um, yeah, I think in general, Star Wars as a series just needs to move on from Skywalker or anything.
Yes,
I know it's a very crazy thought, but it's like as a universe, as a series, it's like we can't just keep rehashing the same stuff. Like there could be legacy stuff, there could be callbacks to certain things, but
definitely.
we need to stop bringing back these characters already and just do, 100 1,000 years into the future after everything's happened. Brand new set of characters. I think they're coming up with the old Republic, so they're going backwards. I think before the prequels. I think with the new movies that they're working on.
I don't even think they're doing that anymore, dude. Rumor is that they're making sequels to the newest trilogy that they did.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to do it again. All right.
Exactly.
We're going to get it right this time. We had
With Rey
three
Skywalker.
times. Ray Skywalker. God. All right. God bless, dude. That's gonna be a whopper. Yeah. If Disney wants my advice, go 1,000 years into the future.
Yes.
Even like a couple hundred years in the future. Just start do something different, dude. Just do something different. People will appreciate it a lot more in the long run.
Yes.
Other than that, I just wanted to throw in. I saw the Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yeah.
Great movie, man. Honestly, I was like, okay, like kind of open when I watched it with my girlfriend. And one night we were just sitting on the couch, and I was like, "Oh, I heard this is pretty good." That's pretty much all the context I had to it. And it was like an animated movie, and just for context, my girlfriend loves animated movies, so I was like, "Okay,
Oh, nice.
we're gonna." So I was like, "This is kind of like a happy medium, so we can kind of check it out." What really enticed me though was when I saw the directors. It was Phil Lord and Chris Miller, so I was like, "Oh, okay, so Lego Movie guys." It's like that's dope. So watched it. Honestly, it was amazing. It has a very unique animation style and like flair to it. There's like a bunch of little cutaway gags. It's very like it's gonna sound cringy when I say it out loud, but it's like it references like meme culture a lot, but like in a good way.
Okay.
In a good way, not in a cringy like I'm gonna rip my face off like they have like a troll face or something.
Yeah.
But like there's like little references because it's like really much about like it's really influenced by the internet, and you can definitely tell.
Okay.
But at the core of it, it's like a very like family-esque movie. It's about this daughter going off to college, and they decide to go on a road trip to take her to college and stuff, and a lot of crazy shit happens. I'm not going to spoil it. Watch the movie. It's very good. And it's nominated for an Oscar at this time, so I'm very excited. I hope it wins. I didn't see anything else that word. I think Encanto was on there too, honestly.
Yes.
I'm gonna be controversial. All right, get your controversial face ready. Yeah, there it is.
Michael.
It's like honestly, just come on. I want Mitchells and the Machines to win. That's what I want. That's what I want.
Oh god.
That's got my back. I'm so tired of Disney always winning this stuff when it comes to animated movies. Like I want someone else to win.
I agree.
My horse is on the Mitchells on this one. So
Cool.
That's my takeaway.
Cool.
I'm gonna do a mic drop and pass it off to Robert here.
Sweet. I'm gonna go through mine real quick because I don't want to linger on them too much. So a new movie called Belle by director Mamoru Hosoda. He is known for Wolf Children, Summer Wars, The Boy and the Beast, Mare, and his first movie, which was The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. He just came out with his newest movie called Belle, which is based on Belle et la Bête, the Beauty and the Beast. And so
Bon appetit.
I did not quite know exactly how I was going to feel about this movie. I'm already like, I have my directors and I'm like, whatever you put out, I will watch it. Like Miyazaki, I'll be there. Mamoru Hosoda, I've watched every single one of his movies. I'm there for it. This one, when I heard there's a little bit of singing and it's like based on Beauty and the Beast, I was kind of like, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I went in and it is his best film he's made so far, dude.
Wow,
that's
a big claim.
It is, and it's better than Beauty and the Beast that Disney put out for sure. And it is such a modern tale of that story in a way that is so beautifully animated, so beautifully like crafted in the way that the story is told. And I cannot say more good things about how good this movie is. It made me emotional. It made my wife emotional. We saw it 2 times, and I've only seen Spider-Man No Way Home 1 time, and I love that movie. We've seen this movie 2 times. And so I really recommend people go watch Belle. It is in theaters right now. I know Funimation has been putting a huge amount of push on this movie, and I think it's paying off because of the fact that it is doing really really well and in the box office for an anime movie that is. And so if you guys have the chance to go watch it at your theater, go watch Belle. It is really really good. The music kind of slaps. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've been listening
Mm.
to it, and it's really really good. And it translates perfectly well. And there's what's interesting about this is the fact that Mamoru Hosoda does a good job in crafting his scenes in a very cinematic way. And so the man just has an eye for how to capture certain things. And so that's all I'm going to say about Belle. Go watch it, enjoy it, and let us know in the comments if you do watch it what you thought about it.
Yeah, me and my girlfriend were thinking about it. It definitely has a very like eye catching animation. It definitely gives
Yes.
me some Studio Ghibli vibes.
Yes.
Also, I didn't know if you knew this. Here's a little fun fact about Beauty and the Beast for you, but
Okay.
it's gonna probably ruin your perspective on the movie now.
Oh boy.
So this was written back in a time where people of a very young age would marry very old men. So it was like these arranged
Mm.
marriages.
Okay.
So basically, it was like a story that they would basically tell these women that were like, in their young teens, and they were going to go marry like these 30 or 40-year-old guys
Yeah.
to basically be like, okay, if you just love them for, if you stay with them long enough, you'll learn to love them. Basically, was the gist of the story or
God
whatever.
bless.
So it's kind of like a story to just kind of ease them into that. So it's a little fun fact. That's kind of the background to the whole Beauty and the Boost story. But
That's sad. I will say we went to go watch it the first time at Alamo Drafthouse, and I love Alamo. They curate like an entire intro, and so they did a history on like Beauty and the Beast, like Belle et la Bête. Like they did the whole thing from the beginning of when
wow.
we first saw it to like all the way to up to where we're at now. They did not mention that, which is kind of funny that you say that they didn't mention that, but that was probably their
Yeah, it probably
choice.
would have put a bad taste in everybody's mouth
Yeah,
before
right.
you watch the movie. But yeah, that's the context. But I will definitely check it out. You've convinced me, Robert. So I will definitely, as soon
Totally,
as I can,
dude.
payday, we're
Watch
going
it.
to the movies for like 3 days straight. So
Watch it, watch it, watch it. Next, I want to talk about is the Uncharted movie. Again, I'm not gonna stick on this too long because I can say a couple things about it. The director is Ruben Fleischer. He did the Venom movies. I know that me and Michael on previous podcasts were already hating on the fact that this movie could probably is more than likely going to be really, really bad. It was in a huge development, like production hell, trying to find directors, trying to figure out who the cast was going to be. Mark Wahlberg was originally going to be Nathan Drake, and then they got Tom Holland. And so I know that we talked about this a lot within the past couple of months leading up to it. And this is PlayStation Productions' first like project. They have The Last of Us coming out on HBO Max. They are making a Ghost of Tsushima movie by the director of John Wick. And so they have a lot of things like in the barrel, ready to go. Went in with zero expectations. And I have to say, Michael, I am pleasantly surprised that it was actually not too bad. I think for what they were going for, which was an action National Treasure esque flick, I think they knocked it out of the park. It was fun. I think some of the banter between Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland actually worked well. And so, dude, it's hard for me to recommend anybody to go out and watch it, but I will say if you look at how it's doing right now, it is projected to hit $51 million over the weekend. Like it is surpassing what they thought it was going to do. The critic score is really low, but audience score is drastically high. Everyone is loving this movie who's going to watch it. So, Michael, are you going to go watch this movie?
I'll be honest with you, probably not. It's not my kind
Okay.
of movie. I didn't really grow up with the Uncharted series, but what I will say is that this is opening up a new door for potential video game to movie adaptations.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
thinking good ones. I'm not talking about Resident Evil 15. I'm not talking about anything that we've seen up until this point. I think this if this movie does well, then it solidifies a serious seat in the table moving forward for video games
Yeah.
as a medium of storytelling to be adapted to filmmaking. I think up to this point it hasn't been taken seriously. I feel like it's just been something that just been used as a cash grab. But actually, analyzing these stories that are being told through the medium of video games and adapting those in some new form or fashion to the silver screen. I think that's awesome. You saw it with Sonic. I know it's a really cheesy comparison, but I mean, to be frank, look how well it did. It's getting a
Yeah.
sequel, right?
It's getting
So
a sequel and then a cartoon series. I mean, not cartoon, a live action series on Paramount Plus, and the third movie has already been greenlit.
see, that's crazy, man. So it's doable, and I think that it's the right time to do it. So I do hope that this movie does really well, because I think it's only going to open up more doors for
I
more
agree.
movies based off video games to
Yes.
do well. And you can tell me, Robert, in terms of like movie to video games adapted into movies or movies adapted from video games, I should say. Sorry. Um, what would you rate this one? Is this pretty solid like adaptation? It was like pretty good.
I'll be honest, dude. This movie sits at like a 6 for me. It didn't like blow me away in any sense of the imagination, but the you can tell that it was almost like on set they had a book and being like, Tom, if you're gonna jump, make sure you jump like this. If you're gonna jump into the water, make sure you jump into the water like this, because this is how Nathan Drake in the game did it. And so it was, for how cheesy that could be, it I think it delivered what it was setting out to do, and it didn't. There's better things out there. I mean, you can look at the Castlevania series on Netflix, the anime,
True.
amazing. And then we already have the Last of Us show that's in production for HBO Max. I am not worried about that show whatsoever. I think HBO Max holds a level of quality that they deliver, and Last of Us fits perfectly in that box. And then I know we already got announced a BioShock show for Amazon Prime. Like
Whoa, whoa,
the
whoa, whoa,
gates
whoa! Is
have,
that's serious?
yeah, that's for real. That's already been confirmed.
What?
Yeah, the floodgates are open.
Finally,
It
dude.
is going to
God.
become a thing now, and so I'm happy for the success for this, because what that means is that the investors or people who back these movies are going to be like, oh, we're getting money. Let's put a little bit more money now. And with that more
Right.
extra money, Uncharted 2, the movie could probably be 2 times better than this one, but we
Right.
don't know yet. But I know that it can fund even better stuff. So that's why I'm happy about the way that this is shaping out to be.
I agree, and I think it's a big signal from Sony and PlayStation to literally just create a studio in basis of this.
Yeah.
So obviously they're very committed to the vision of this, and that's really what I want to see. I think a lot of studios kind of just been in the past you seeing video game IPs as like an opportunity to make a cash grab.
Yeah.
They just kind of see it as like, oh, like people just take this off as of name recognition and just kind of go from there.
Yes.
Um, so I think this is like a very serious foothold that they're trying to make and that push forward, legitimizing video games as like a form of cinema
Definitely.
moving forward. So I think that's awesome. So yeah, well, I'm excited for it. Probably not going to watch it. Can't stand Mark Wahlberg, so it's just got an annoying face, dude. I don't know what it is. I don't have a really good answer for that. It's kind of a cheese ball. I don't really take
Yeah.
him seriously when I see him,
I
but
feel you. I feel you.
yeah, but it's cool.
Lastly, I want to talk about Ranking of Kings real quick. This is an anime that is, you can see it on Funimation, you can see it on Crunchyroll. Um, I I just heard people talking about this anime on TikTok, on Twitter. The art style does not grab my attention. I'm always the kind of person where I'm like, if you have a cool art style, you got me. Demon Slayer, you got me. I mean, Attack on Titan, you got me. I mean, let's keep going. You know what I'm saying? This one does not have an art style that grabbed me at all. I would not have thought about watching this ever if it wasn't until I saw videos and people talking about the fact, like, do not sleep on this show. It is an instant classic. Give it a chance. And so I jumped in, and then within one night, I just watched 6 episodes. I love this show so much. It is a show about a young prince named Boji, and he is deaf and muted, and he is the son of a king who is dying, and he is set to take his throne. But everybody in the kingdom, even his stepmother, the people who are the guards, everybody looks down on him. Like he cannot, he's not suitable. They think he's dumb because he can't speak. They think he doesn't understand what they're saying when they're talking about things about him, but he can because he can read lips. Like, it is a story about this young boy that is going out to prove everybody wrong. And so it's that such a simple plot, but as everything gets going, it blows my mind that I'm like, dude, the show is so good that there's so much plot that, oh, these people are trying to stop him because the king from back in the day did this. And so like it's this beef that has to do with this lineage. And it is so good. I can keep going on and on about how good this show is. Some of the action is really, really good. The acting, like the voice acting is really good. And the story and the heart that's in it. Oh my God, guys, if you have not given this show a chance, go watch Ranking of Kings. I'm already at episode 14 already, and it's only been a weekend. I've
Wow.
been binging this show. It is really good. So check this show out. Check it out.
It kind of looks like an old like 80s anime in a way. You know what I
It
mean?
does.
Like it's
Yeah.
that same style.
The art style is like very classicy, you know. So I've been a bit of fan of it so far.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
All right. After 2 crashes and our 3rd recording so far, Michael, are you ready to get into talking about Blade Runner?
I think so. I think Ridley Scott is just channeling himself through our video and just trying to shut us down.
He
Is what
is.
it is.
He
Because
is.
he thinks we're gonna rip into it or something. But
Without
we're
further
not.
ado, guys,
Let's jump into it, man. Let's just jump
let's jump
into
right
it.
into it. Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott, written by Hampton Fancher and David Webb's Peoples, is based on the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, written by Philip K. Dick. And the cast: Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard. We have Rutger Hauer as Roy,
Yep.
Sean Young as Rachel, Edward James Olmos as Gaff, which blew me away when I first saw. I was like, "Is that Edward James Olmos?" M. Emmett Walsh as Bryant, Daryl Hannah as Pre, William Sanderson as J.F. Sebastian, and then we got a couple other people, but it doesn't really matter. Look, none of these people matter these days anymore, other than Harrison Ford, to be quite honest. But
Yeah, he's got a pretty old hat, I would say.
I went in and read a little bit of the Wikipedia, and so I want to read this before we get into our thoughts of the movie.
Go for it.
Interest in adapting Philip K. Dick's novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep developed shortly after its publication in 1968. Director Martin Scorsese was interested in filming the novel, but never optioned it. Producer
God.
Herb Jaffe optioned it in the early 1970s, but Dick was unimpressed with the screenplay written by Herb's son Robert, saying Jaffe's screenplay was so terribly done. Robert flew down to Santa Ana to speak with me about the project. And the first thing I said to him when I got off the plane was, "Shall I beat you up here at the airport or shall I beat you up back at my apartment?" So I'll be honest with you. I never seen this movie. I never seen Blade Runner 2049. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, you
Okay.
got it. I haven't
Never
either.
seen it.
Just go with that in mind. That I also haven't seen the new one either. So
Sweet. And without further ado, Michael, I want to know your thoughts. What was your watching Blade Runner? I know you said before we recorded you've seen it before, but watching it again, what were your thoughts on this movie?
honestly, it's almost crazy how much this movie doesn't look like it came from the 80s in some ways. Obviously, it's a little campy in others, like some things that really give it away. But in terms of set design, in terms of costume design, just the world building, which I know Ridley Scott is really well known for, is just creating these characters in these universes. Um, it's just impressive, and that's that beginning draw in the movie where it's just like this slow pan where you're working your way to the Tyrell Corporation building.
Yeah.
It's insane, and I think this movie just does so many things really well in terms of the score, the music throughout the movie, of course, but just these shots, man, these shots that just linger so well on a cinematography level. They just did such an amazing job, and what I think is just really impressive. I know we were talking about the effects before we started the recording at the beginning, but I wanted to say this earlier, but I wanted to wait until we started recording. Those are all miniatures. Those are all like painstakingly made miniatures that they did. Yeah, the buildings. I saw a recording of that like a long time ago. It's all practical. It's absolutely all practical to what they did there. And they created those miniatures for that opening scroll where they just, they have a camera just cruising through in there.
Yeah.
And they show how they just went in and put in the lighting systems inside these little miniatures and stuff. And it's just so crazy impressive. And it just gives you that sense. You know what I mean? I was trying to think of the words for it. It's kind of like a melancholy film,
Yeah,
in a way. It's very
definitely.
uneasy. It's really dope. It's a cool movie. There's a lot of cool action pieces to it, but I wouldn't call it an action movie. I just think it's very melancholy. It's a
Right.
very kind of filled movie. Um, so my younger sibling, they actually had to watch the movie, or they actually read the book that it's based on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so they were giving me a lot of context to the film essentially, and it's crazy because it's just way more depressing. Because basically the world that they're living at, Earth is just screwed. So basically, the people who live on Earth are like these untouchables on the planet because everyone's gone off colony to Mars. Basically, everyone's moved on to bigger and better things, and basically, Earth is pretty much dying or at this point dead. And basically, everybody who's left is just there, and they're basically just the untouchables of the society.
Gotcha.
Um, Mars is supposed to be like this like paradise. Unless you're an android, then it's like a giant wasteland supposedly because they're basically the slave labor. And you do get some of that context at the beginning with the intro scroll, but I don't think I really knew how deep the rabbit hole went until he gave me some of that um, context of the movie. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. Um, Overall, it's just really impressive. It's a very philosophical movie, I think, and just in terms of what we consider humanity and what does humanity really entail. Funny enough, I was actually playing Cyberpunk before
Okay.
we did the recording a little bit.
Nice.
Just getting in the mood and stuff. And it's just crazy because that's such a big theme of this movie. It's just what is humanity? What does that look like? What does that entail?
Right.
Um, do these basically tools that we refer to them as have a soul? Do they have some form of consciousness? There's something there, um, and it's just crazy to think about what does it mean to be alive. And I think that movie does a really good job of capitalizing on it. Um, just from a technological feat, again, just very impressive. Just everything about this movie from top to bottom. I thought the acting was really good. I think Harrison Ford is just really good at playing Harrison Ford,
Yes,
and
he
I'm
is.
okay with that.
Yeah.
It's acceptable. It is 100% acceptable. Whatever he does, because he's done Star Wars, he's done Indiana Jones, he's done Blade Runner, obviously, both this one and the new one. He's played the president, believe it
Yes.
or not. So
Yes.
it's just funny because I just don't even, I know in the movie his name's Rick Deckard or whatever. I'm just like, that's just Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
That's like that's Han Solo post retirement right there.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think this movie does a lot of things well. Um, it's just very gripping. I think this movie pioneered a lot of things from movies moving forward in terms of what the future could look like from like a cyberpunk aesthetic, if that makes sense. I think it really painted that really well. And it has definitely had a lot of influence in other mediums moving forward from there. So, Robert, give me your 2 cents because I could just talk
No,
your ear off
yeah.
about this movie.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I mean, that's why we're here. My thing is with this movie, I enjoyed it. I think the intro, it was a very slow intro. Like it is just black screen, white text, eerie music in the background. And the only color that you got was the Blade Runner when it shows those words on the screen, it's red and it goes back to white. And it's like cast and producer and director. Like you get a full, like almost like a minute straight of just credits. And then it gets into the shot, the intro shot. And I loved it. I thought it really set the tone. This is a very noir without the black and white kind of
Right.
cyberpunk movie. And I think what I enjoyed about it is the fact that there was not a moment. And if I went back and I was really, really paying attention, I could probably find something. But there wasn't a moment where I was like, man, that didn't age well. Like
Yeah,
weirdly,
exactly.
really Scott did a great job trying to make sure that everything was confined in a space to where like we're not going to get too crazy with this. Like we're going to just keep it the way that it is because it'll last longer. And so I loved it. Even like I watched the Blade Runner, the final cut, which I think is practically what's out on Netflix and HBO.
Right.
If you rent the movie from a service, I think I read that usually that's the theatrical cut, the
Theatrical?
theatrical cut of the movie. I don't know what just happened there. And so And I know there's like 7 different versions of the movie, but we watched the
Oh
final
yeah.
cut, which is what I believe is really Scott's like pure hand over the editing of the entire movie. And so
Hmm.
uh I enjoyed it. And what I loved about it is the fact that the audio had that they didn't have that cleanness, like that clean, crisp audio to it. And I don't know what, but it added to the entire experience, you know?
Right. The whole aesthetic, essentially.
Exactly, exactly. And we see things like vehicles or machinery being used to see if you're a replicant or not. And I was like, man, this stuff holds up, dude. I don't like they were ahead of their times on certain not ahead of the times, but they really were modern with the way that they did it. And it wasn't so like in the past. And there's we see like they pull out certain Polaroids or like these pictures and it's Polaroid branded but it's a black border with the red Polaroid lettering. I was like, dude, that's so dope. Like it really fit the aesthetic. I think what's funny is that it's in 2019, which blows me away.
They definitely got it right.
They did, yeah. We're there, boys. And I don't know, like there's video calls in the movie.
Right.
It man, there's so many aspects to it that I was like, dude, I love this. I love it. And I agree with you. Harrison Ford is practically playing Harrison Ford. I read that, when he signed on to be in this movie, he already did Star Wars and Indiana Jones. So he was looking for something a bit more serious. And so he took this role. Again, I can't. I like again. I liked him. I liked the role that he played, but like he didn't really do too crazy of anything. Like he put. It was almost as if he was kind of like, I'm just gonna play this as me.
He's
And
like, I'm
you
just
hit it
gonna
on the
show
point.
up and wear this trench coat and shoot at things.
Exactly. But I do have to say that it did seem like he cared in certain aspects. Like I know when they were filming the movie, they agreed on the movie not to have narration. And I know that there's certain versions of the movie where there's a narration of his voice. And he said that he hated that. He was like, the movie is not good with the narration, but he unfortunately had to go in and read these words that these other people after the movie came out wrote for him to read. And you can tell there was a certain aspect to the film that he actually like cherished, and so anyways,
I agree. That's so weird. I didn't know they did that. That they added narration. It doesn't. It wouldn't serve the movie well. I don't think there was anything. Because we've talked about this before, right? It's like rule number one in filmmaking. It's show, don't tell.
yes.
I think this movie, if like Ridley Scott was like a football player and this was like the Super Bowl, he left everything on the field, man. Like
Oh yeah.
he really went all out. Um, with this movie. He was very, and I mean, obviously films are a collaborative effort. There's a lot of different factors, different departments, all that goes into it. But I mean, seriously, like you could call him the quarterback and the reference to his position as director. He really just did not leave any stone unturned essentially across the board. Like he really went all out with this movie, and it just shows across the board. There's so much visual storytelling that you just pick up across the board. I don't think there would be a need for someone to narrate what's going on or what's going on through Rick's head or whatever.
Right.
I think the movie speaks for itself on its own terms across the board throughout the film. I don't think anything was just kind of like, oh, I needed a voiceover for this one. If Harrison Ford eating noodles at a noodle stand. So,
And that's the thing is, I think when I hear people say that the studio wanted them to have voiceover, in my mind I'm like, okay, I feel like I know what you're trying to go for when you say that. Like the old-timey noir detective
right.
movies, the guy is voiceovering what is happening in the moment, but this movie does not need that. Like this is the future. Like we are in the year 2019, boys. Come on, this is the future we're talking about here. So I think the aesthetic of it all fits so much better when it's just him and we're just seeing him go through it all at the moment. And but yeah, so Michael, I want to know, was there a couple things in the movie that you were like, I didn't quite like?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think there was a scene where they did like a close up of someone's hands and they had some really long fingernails. That was kind of gross. There was some really gross looking fingernails. And I was like, oh, I was like, I don't like that. Um, to be honest, I'm gonna call him this just because I can't remember his name, but the Asian detective that was with him, I think I didn't really understand his purpose throughout the film. He was just kind of always there in the background.
Okay.
He didn't do a whole lot other than origami. It seemed like.
Oh, that was Edward James almost.
Oh, really? Okay, gotcha. So that's who you're talking about. Okay, for me, I didn't necessarily get a whole lot about his character throughout the movie. He was just kind of there, but then again, I
Yeah.
guess he was just kind of playing it kind of mysterious as well.
Yeah.
So I guess there's that added context. And then I'm gonna call a timeout real quick because your boy's got to pee real quick.
Go
That
for it.
6-year-old bladder's going
Go for it.
hard real quick.
All right.
I really tried to be good this time, Robert. I really did.
No, you're good. We're already like an hour and a half in, and we've only recorded 40 minutes. So
All right. In terms of things I didn't like from the movie, honestly, man, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think this is one of those movies where I would have a really hard time criticizing it because there's just so many things I really enjoyed about it. It's really up my alley. I like sci-fi. I do like that noir. I don't know. It almost kind of reminds me of Drive in some ways.
okay.
And the similar kind of like storyline, kind of like this lone character just kind of wandering around, and then stuff happens, right? But overall, I personally didn't feel anything there was wrong with the movie. But I am curious. I feel like you're about to open a can of worms. I got my box of tissues right next to me, so go ahead, tear my heart apart.
I think there's a couple things that I was like, that was an interesting choice. I think for me, close to the end, there's a moments where Deckard is going up in the building that JF is in, trying to go find him,
Right.
and there's these weird cuts that's like him going up the stairs, and then it's cutting to Pre, who's just trying to like blend in as like one of the many different contraptions that JF created,
Yeah.
and she's just kind of like and
Just looking
those who are
around.
listening, you can't see this, like she just is randomly just look like it would be Harrison Ford running, and then it'll cut to her, and she'll just like do this random glance to the left or the right, or then to the camera. And I was like, I don't get what's going on. I don't get this. But and then it continues to where he's fighting with her, and she's doing these acrobatic Chun-Li like fights.
Yeah, and the backflips and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm like, if this was Street Fighter, I'd understand this, but this is Blade Runner, the year 2019 of our Lord, and I don't understand. I don't understand why you're doing this.
Well, maybe I can answer that.
Please do.
Roy Batty and Pris, they're combat models of the Nexus, so they're both combat-oriented androids.
Okay.
So, I mean, while it's kind of silly that they do kung fu moves and stuff like that, it does make sense because if it was in their programming, that's probably how to just do that kind of stuff. If that makes sense,
Right.
I don't know if that kind of helps. Kind of delve that. I'm sure you knew that, but I was kind of like, yeah, it didn't take me out. It is kind of silly by our 2022 standards of
Yes.
what it was probably 1982, but
Definitely.
maybe it was just one of those directorial choices where I was like, okay, we need something kind of more eye gripping or something like that for this fight scene rather than just throw punches back and forth.
Yeah.
Maybe it was something like that on a technical level, but it does make sense in the world universe, in my opinion, basically because they're used as combat models. Technically, Pris is actually a combat/leisure model, so I don't know what that means, but I don't know if you saw that earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
it's like
when they do the whole
context on that.
I love how when they're showing their different forms, like it shows like a rotating like
right
thing on them. I'm like that. I mean, I get what they're trying to do, but for the time, I was like, that's cool. I like what you're doing. You could have put a green filter over that part to make it look a little different, but it's whatever. And again, like it's a context thing. It's the at the time, what was it looking like then? And there's those moments where I understand the time was coming for these replicants to shut down. They're acting kind of weird. I just don't understand, like, even like Roy, why was he just acting like animalistic? Like wolf calls and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, it just really, like, I I love the moment at the end. Like Harrison Ford is trying to escape. He drops his gun. He's just trying to get out of there because he knows if he stays, he's gonna die. And the tension is
Right.
building. But Roy is without his shirt, like, ooh, doing like, and I'm like, come on, like. It
So
kind of broke. It broke the tension for me a bit. Like, would you agree, or am I way off on this?
it's broken the immersion for you.
Yeah, it did.
I guess like in the context, I can only understand like what he maybe like what really Scott was kind of going for. To my understanding, I mean, he's kind of like a loon, right? He's kind of crazy. So he's gonna do crazy shit like that. I think that makes sense. Like he's Roy Batty, right? He's gonna do some
Yeah.
batty shit. Which means, howling with the shirt off. I mean, honestly, I'd probably be more scared if there's this guy that was just like this beast that can't feel pain. Just take, that has no shirt, just howling at me.
Yeah.
I'm pooping pants, dude. I'm pooping pants.
Yeah.
I'm booking it. So for me, if I was Deckard, I'd be like, no, I'm not with this.
Yes.
And he was smart for doing that. He was smart because he's like, there was no chance in hell without a gun he was going to take that dude out.
Right.
But yeah, it makes sense because I think almost like if I remember correctly, he was almost at the end of his lifespan, right?
Yes.
4 years.
Yeah.
So, and it's almost like in a way, there's no basis for this, but it's almost like maybe he's having some form of like dementia or Alzheimer's in his character, something like that. Because if you ever like listen and talk throughout the movie, it's kind of like weird all over the place, if that makes sense. Even like the end monologue, he kind of has that moment of clarity where he's kind of reflecting on his life, which also was a badass monologue. Probably one of my favorite ones.
I enjoyed it.
I think he's at the end of his rope, and you can kind of tell whether that's with him just the way he's acting, but also like maybe mentally as well, or maybe Ridley Scott really likes wolves, and he's like, hey, give us a howl for us.
Yeah.
Rutger.
and I agree with you because I mean I see where you're coming from, and that does make sense in that aspect. I want to say I enjoyed the monologue as well. I thought that shot was so beautiful. Like it's him in the rain, sitting down, giving this monologue. Ridley Scott throughout the entire movie is using this harsh blue light to kind of give this tone. And so that's hitting him. We even got like some of the light from below because they're on the rooftop, giving a little bit of white. And it's that shot of him sitting there in the rain's coming down. He's giving this. I loved it, dude. It was really, really good. I loved that framing of it. And I will say the last part, my last with this whole thing was was Deckard forcing himself on Rachel. Like that was a little. I don't quite understand. I guess I'm really lost as to what was going on there.
Their dynamic.
Exactly. Like she is a replicant. And he like what's with him? What's with the piano? What's with the pictures? What's up with them? Like, is there something going on between the two of them that I don't quite understand? The him forcing himself on her was kind of like that's kind of a little weird. Like
a little sus,
and I know that she's a robot and not a human, but still there's weird implications on that part. Like I still don't quite understand it. Deckard's not a replicant, right?
Do you want me to spoil that for you? Because
is that a thing in the new
theories?
movie?
There's theories. Even before the new movie.
Let's go for it.
Even before the movie. Yeah. So I don't remember. Don't quote me this entirely, but I do believe Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott confirmed that he was a replicant because there was rumors going around. Jesus, for like the longest time of him, supposedly being a replicant, and I think they both confirmed it. And there's subtle hints throughout the movies. I don't know if you ever, I'm sure you caught on about the eyes.
Yes.
Like how they have like weird robot eyes. There's a couple of like very quick scenes that if you look at Deckard's eyes, you could see that same little glimmer that he has in his eyes.
I thought the same.
So I thought that was cool. I was like, that's a really subtle hint. So I don't know if I 100% believe he is. I mean, the director confirmed it. The actor said they were. I don't know. I think the story works better if he was human, in my opinion. But I mean, that's my opinion as well in terms of like what we were going for. That I think it was weird. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, man, because it's 1982. Yeah, like
it's a different time.
It's a weird time. People do stuff like that. I don't think it's right necessarily, or what that implication kind of looks like. but also I think it's because of the context of the story as well. It's like I don't remember the exact same how it went down, but essentially, like, he doesn't see them as people necessarily, like these replicants. And I think Rachel's like the first one. He's like, ooh, I don't know about this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
even her as a replicant is new. It's a new thing because she's got these memories implanted to her. They've never done that before. So obviously, prior, a lot of these replicants probably acted like robots. They're probably very
Right.
similar to that, even though they might have been really smart or whatever the case might be. They just didn't have that context. And that kind of makes sense why they would kind of revolt at the same time, because they're kind of like, it was kind of bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
we lived for 4 years, and then we're basically sitting there with pickaxes breaking rocks and shit.
Right. Right.
So they're
Right.
probably pissed about that. So that makes sense. Um, so I don't know. I think Rachel's character is kind of obviously like a love interest for Deckard, but also I think it's there to challenge his preconceived beliefs of what he thought of replicants, and also for like a lot of the other people in this universe. It's like it just brings that question: how do we define humanity across the board?
Right.
So I almost want to flip the question onto you, Robert. Would you consider replicants human, or would you consider them to have human, like a soul? I guess is the best way I could kind of call it.
Kill him. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my god! He said, "F- 'em."
The thing for me is
Wow.
they're robots, they're androids practically. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no apps, like they're artificial. Like there's no reason for them to. I can't feel for it because it's not real, in my opinion. And so, sure, it might bleed, but like, there's that scene where they go into the freezer, and the dude's like making the eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all he does. He does eyes, and so I'm like,
Right.
they're not real. I can't. I, in that case, I'm kind of like, I don't see. I guess there's that little bit of separation where I'm like, I know you're trying to fight for your independence in some sort of way, but I'm like, at the same time, you're you are just like my toaster. You were created by somebody, and you had this. You were made for this one thing. There's no soul in you. You're just completely just robot.
Oh, not see. I have to disagree. That's
Really?
that's You can't say that it's like your toaster, man. You can't even talk about like Aristotle or Marcus Aurelius as your microwave or something like that. It's like these beings are so capable of like, even in the beginning, I think they were talking about how they could be as smart as like even the engineers that created them
Hmm.
at minimum.
Yeah.
These are very smart beings, and whether or not we want to accept it, it's like almost like we gave sentience to these creations, if that makes sense. And it's just, I guess, in terms of like humanity, and even like in the real world, in terms of implications, like I think we have to realign the parameters of what we consider to be real and not real. Because I mean, if we're creating these beings that look like us, that are capable of independent thought, that are able to do this, I think there's a responsibility to look after those creations and give them those certain freedoms. Because I think you hit a point where it stops being a toaster. It's like a living, thinking being to some extent,
Hmm.
even though it's not in the traditional sense as humans, if that makes sense.
Right. I get what you're saying. I mean, again, I'm being facetious. I'm trying to.
Facetious. And
But my
he's like, I'm gonna throw my toaster into the bathtub real quick.
yeah, exactly, right. But like I said, I mean, again, I they're just robots to me. You know what I'm saying? I do
Oof.
now. Again, if you want to go as far as now, I think the mod people in Book of Boba Fett, those are real people because they added that onto their body, but they are not originally a robot.
See, but then we get into this whole discussion. I'm going to bring up some video games. You're going to appreciate this. I know this is a movie podcast, but I'll bring up some video
Let's
games
go
real
for it.
quick. So, Cyberpunk, boom. Okay, so like the whole, they deal with a lot of themes like that too, in terms of like what is defined as humanity. I think there's literally the main antagonist or one of the antagonists. I think his name's Adam Smasher. 96% robot. You know what I mean? Like he's modded himself to a point where he's 96% machine. He was born a human, you know, but now at this point in his existence, he's 96% robot.
Mm.
So does he stop being a human because of that? And I mean, he's a horrible person. Like there's anyone who's played the game, they know like the first line he ever says to the main protagonist or whatever, and you're just like, man, this guy, you don't want to fuck with this guy.
Yeah.
He's just very intimidating figure. He does not look human. He's the furthest thing from it, from a metaphorical standpoint, from a physical standpoint. Fallout 4. If you played Fallout 4, there's like the faction with the railroad. Their whole shtick is, these androids, these synths. That's what they call them. Are they human? Are they? Well, obviously they're not human, right? But are they worthy of coexisting amongst humanity as
Right.
an equal? If that makes sense.
Right.
Are they worthy of these lives? And it's just these more like questions that they always ask. And I think the answer is ultimately like, yeah, like it's almost like, if you want to get biblical with it, it's almost like, I'm not gonna get too deep into religion here, but like,
Hey, let's
like
go,
God
man.
create it's like immediately disliked. But like, how almost like how God created humans in its image, right? So it's almost like, in a way, we're creating robots in our image, and it's our responsibility to kind of look after these creations the same way, in a biblical sense. If you're into that stuff, the same way God would, in terms of humanity, if that makes sense. There's almost a robust responsibility that we have to take for, and accountability for bringing these creations into existence. I think it's a very minute point to kind of focus on, well, whether does it have a heart and a brain the same way does that I do, or whatever. I think it's still if it's capable of sentient thought, I think it's worthy of being treated as an equal in the grand scheme of things.
Interesting.
That If that makes sense, and I
Yeah,
think
this
that's
is
what the movie's trying to impose.
that makes
Sorry, go
sense.
ahead,
That makes
Robert.
sense. No, no, no. This is very much so a ship of theses kind of comparison here. Like
Sure.
it's a broken ship over 10 years. You replace every single part. Is it the same ship at the end?
Yes.
And so I totally get that. I get the message, and I love that conflict, because it's one of those things of like, I love those kinds of things. But again, like, if it was my 1 month old baby that I have no connection to, with, like, in regards to a 1 month of knowing it, or my 10-year-old dog and they're both drowning, I'm grabbing the baby and killing the dog. Like, because one has more uh what's the word?
Intrinsic worth.
I guess, yeah, one has more worth than the other, and it's not the fact that one is more worthy than the other, but I think that there's more value in a human being than there is in a dog. And so, not to say that I'm trying to compare dogs to androids, but like, if it was, like, if there's a baby android, and then my
If it was my
and
toaster or my
exactly,
child.
if it was a toaster or my child, I'm taking the child. You know what I'm saying? But it's
But what
interesting.
if it's a really good toaster? What if it was a really good toaster, Robert?
You know, I would have
You could
to
do
really
six
think.
slices.
I would have to think. I would have to really think about that one, because then my life will change forever. And this kind of reminds me of the movie Artificial Intelligence. I love that movie.
With Haley Joel Osment and Spielberg, right?
Yes, exactly. I
That movie's
love,
wild, yeah.
love, love that movie. It is one of my favorite movies, and I feel for Haley Joel Osment's character, even though he is a robot and he is not real. You feel for him, and so I do love. I love this conversation. It practically links up perfectly with that movie, and so I do agree with you. Should they be just treated as trash? Like, no. But if that's the case, then why don't you just make a robot that looks like a toaster to just break up rocks? You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's the case, you know what I'm saying? And so I don't. You get into the whole minutia of it, like, what is what and this and that. But overall enjoyed the theme as a whole, and it makes me wonder what Blade Runner 2049 is about, because I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I know
Right.
nothing about it. I know about one scene that was spoiled in particular, about this one character in particular, but that's because it was a huge achievement in CGI and that kind of stuff. But I know nothing about that movie, so I'm very interested to check it out now.
Yeah, I'm in the same way. We bought the DVD like forever ago, and it was
Oh,
on a
nice.
like a Walmart like bargain bin,
Yeah,
which is hilarious.
yeah,
I was like, wow, this is like not worthy of that. This won Oscars, but okay. Like, you're not gonna put this right next to the Emoji Movie or
yeah,
whatever. But I
yeah.
was like, okay, whatever. Um, so that was there, but yeah, we picked it out. I was like, I'm going to watch this at some point. Something with Dunkirk, all that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's kind of like it's that morality check that they do in the movie. You kind of it's going to make the joke that we kind of had to do a Vought cough test on you just now on whether you said you're going to kill a dog or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a great measure. It's a good litmus test in terms of intrinsic value that something might have. It's like, where is their morality? Because if their whole thing is like, oh well, I'm just going to leave the turtle on its back and just let it, you know, roast, then okay, maybe you might be an android or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think it's a measure of their humanity, and I think how much humanity, what humanity really means, or what it might be synonymous is their morality. Like, how do they view other living things, and how they view themselves as a living thing? And I think putting emphasis on that is what really deters them from your Keurig or your microwave.
Right.
Putting it that way, it's like
Right.
having that ability to differentiate those things. So it's yeah. There's a lot of things we could talk. We could go super deep in the sauce on the whole Android thing. I'm
Yeah.
sure Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are going to listen to this and
They
really
love it.
just really think about
We're really making them think
it.
about this one for sure.
Well, it's crazy because I mean, even Musk is he's coming out with robots that
Yeah.
I think about the next couple of years
Yeah.
that pretty much are similar to humans. I mean, obviously they don't look like us yet, and I emphasize the yet.
Yeah.
But it's there. Like the technology's there, and I predict within our lifespan we're going to see the emergence of androids, and we're going to have to answer these tough questions. And I would hope that we evaluate our history as humans, how we treated people of different races and different sexes, that we make the right call when it comes to that moment where we have to decide: are these tools no longer tools but are equals, or vice versa? And I
Definitely.
promise you, Robert, people are going to remember, man. People are going to remember that choice because I've seen that robot a couple times, and it doesn't end too well for the humans for a minute there.
No, I
So
just
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 saying.
just so everyone knows, I'm already screwed. Like this is going up on YouTube, and this is already in their brains. You know what I'm saying? So when they see me, because they have like a faster SSD than any computer at the time, they're gonna be able to pull this video up in their brain within a millisecond and be like, "That guy's got to go." And so
Robert's
I'm dead.
disintegrated.
I'm dead. I'm done. In the year 2070 something or in the year 2049, the next movie Blade
Yeah,
Runner is out.
yeah, yeah.
I'm dead. I'm not in that movie. Like that's not happening because the androids took me out. But Michael, is there any last thoughts you want to give about the movie as a whole before Zencaster just crashes on us again?
Oh God. Honestly, if you haven't seen this movie, I think on a technological standpoint, it's definitely worth a watch. It honestly really inspired me just with the ability of what they were able to do back then. Um, and just being just the power of the miniatures. I always loved Star Wars because of that, because of their
Yeah,
creativity and the things that they did with their props. I love this movie as well for that specific reason, as well as just with those long wide shots. It's a very beautiful, beautifully gafted movie across the board. The lighting's just amazing. The score is amazing. I think overall it's just worthy of anybody. I mean, even if you're not super into sci-fi, I think it's worthy of just being watched as just this really nice piece of cinema. Um, because it has so many pros, and I can think of cons as well. And so I think this is honestly one of Ridley Scott's best movies, probably him at his best, I would say. Um, so I would say definitely check this out if you haven't already.
totally, totally. I would have to echo everything that you said. I think the movie's awesome. It's phenomenal. I think the cinematography is really, really good. And I agree with you.
Fuego.
I think this is one of Ridley Scott's. It's awesome. If you have the chance, go watch it. It's on HBO Max. I think it's also on Netflix. Check it out. If you guys like YouTube videos, there's this group of guys called Corridor Digital that they break down VFX.
Yes.
They did a breakdown on, I know, a scene from Blade Runner 2049, and then they did a breakdown of the intro to this movie showing how they did this, like the pan shot of the entire city. So check that out. It's awesome. But yeah, I love this movie, man. I think it was really, really
The,
good.
they also said they also did the Luke one, I believe, too. The deepfake. They
They
think they
did.
did it better than,
They
which is
did
also
actually
pretty tough.
recreate that deep fake as well and criticize the original one as well. So
That's funny.
uh,
I did want to say one more thing. I do want to say one more thing. We just talk about one more thing about this movie. I
yeah,
did remember it just off the
go for
top
it.
of
Go
my
for
head.
it.
Ridley Scott was quoted talking about The Last Duel recently, talking about how millennials can't stay off their phones. I think we talked about this, and I was just like, he's just like an angry man shaking his fist at the cloud.
Yes.
I think honestly he might be onto something, because I did watch Blade Runner, and in terms of pacing, it's different. It's very different to what we're used to now in movies that we see now versus something like Blade Runner back in the 80s. I think movies back then you really had to sit down and just absorb.
Definitely.
And for me, like, I've seen the movie before, and I even remember when I watched it the first time, I was like, dude, this is like a really long, long intro. And I was like half tempted to look at my phone. And it's crazy because it's just like, oh, I was like, this is boomer talk. This is being an angry boomer.
Yeah,
But it's kind of true. I think our attention spans are a little screwy nowadays, to where it's like you don't really get the chance to get away with stuff like that anymore, where you have these long shots, unless you're just a really big fan of film and you enjoy that kind of thing. For most people in the mainstream audience, it's probably not going to sit there and watch through these long, long ass shots. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I agree.
It's just not going to happen. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that and kind of get your 2 cents if you felt the same way while watching this. If you felt like it was just like really different to what we see nowadays, or just get your 2 cents on that.
My thing is what I notice is that when people like him say things about modern modern film, I guess you
Right.
could say modern film, he's from a different time, you know,
Right.
entirely different time, dude. And I think what's interesting is all the younger people now that criticize him, and I had something to say about it. I thought that he was kind of out of line a bit from what he was saying, and I still kind of do to an extent, but you have to have context. And I think that's something that a lot of younger people nowadays have zero idea of, like even considering his context. And I agreed. Watching this movie, I don't know if it would do the same now. Now that it's a cult classic, everyone respects it. But if the same movie now came out today, the exact same way, same pacing, same everything, it would not hold up. I can tell you, I bet you right now it will not hold up. And let's even go back to like The Last Door, one of his most recent movies. It is a movie that is 3 acts, but like seeing the same story play out from different aspects. Some people watch that movie and you'd be like, man, this is a slow movie. And I get that. But he just has a very different way of doing things.
Right.
And wants you as a viewer to grab information differently. And there's no right or wrong way. You can do it your own way. But again, he's from a very different time period. And I don't like, you will not see Steven Spielberg say this, because either he's hip and he's constantly moving with the rest of where things are going, or he's a corporate shill and just wants to make sure that he's on the good side of the people giving him the money. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well, to add to that, so it's like you mentioned Scorsese as well, and he also was very critical of modern
yeah,
movies as well. Um, but I see similarities. Now that we're talking about it with Ridley Scott's movies and Scorsese's films. Um, I'm not sure how familiar you are with his filmography, Scorsese's,
a little
but
bit.
like Casino. I don't know if you've seen
Yes.
Casino, but Casino was such a drool to get through, dude. It was so. I'm not gonna say it's a bad movie, but Christ, dude, it is such a long movie. It's like I have a hard time believing people, and I know people that like that movie. It's not a bad movie per se. Like there's nothing like innately terrible about the movie, but it's just like it's one of those movies where it's like you're watching this because you really like Scorsese. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
That's not something I would just go watch on a Friday night at the theater and be like, okay, I'm going to sit here for 3 hours and watch this movie
Right.
with no context on what it's about. I would
Right.
absolutely hate that movie if that was the case. I like Scorsese. I love what kind of movie Scorsese makes. He's very, mafia, gangster kind of type of movies.
Yeah.
And I like his style when it comes to that. He is very good at that kind of genre. Goodfellas is another good example. I thought that movie was really good. I
Yeah.
thought that was a solid watch. I think anybody could get into that. But I couldn't say the same for Casino. Casino didn't have the same impact to me that Goodfellas had. With Ridley, it's kind of like the same thing. I watched House of Gucci with my girlfriend. I honestly, I didn't really have a context of what to expect. I just really liked the cast. I like the idea of the story. I thought it was a very sexy looking movie. I'm going to be very honest, so I was
Yeah.
like really interested in it. But that movie dragged a little bit, and I'll be honest, I enjoyed the whole movie beginning to end, but I could feel it. I could feel it in my ass, and I know that's funny saying it out loud, but I could really feel it in my ass that I was on there for 2.5 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just such a big ask. And I think they did a study where I think movies are getting longer or something like that. And there might be some truth to that, but I'll harp on this last point. You mentioned Spielberg. I think Spielberg's always been on the cutting end when it comes to film. He's the one that pioneered the idea of blockbusters and
Yes.
stuff like that. So he has his own cinema language that might be different than Scorsese's and Ridley Scott's, but he basically, if we were to attribute modern film the way we know it now, you would have to go all the way back to Jaws and the conventional standard of what a blockbuster is. And I think that's what a lot of movies have been trying to do for the last couple decades is
Yeah,
just replicate that success through these movies and just try to capture it. And then, honestly, maybe almost too far to an extent, in the sense that it's like now it's like we're treating movies like an amusement park ride. Like you'll sit down and watch the
definitely.
Avengers for 3 hours, like you just got off like the roller coaster. And, I think I'm not one of those people that says, "Oh, that's not cinema or that's not movies or whatever." I think it's just a different kind of genre
Correct.
with its own parameters. The same thing as Western, sci-fi. There's just rules to it, and that's just how it is. It's coming into the new zeitgeist of our culture, and not everybody's going to get that. I'm sure people when Scorsese, actually, I do know that when Scorsese and Ridley Scott were coming along, the directors before them would shit on them because they were just way too far off. And
Yeah,
it's funny because you could really, I remember reading about that and hearing about that in film school, and it's just always this constant shitting on for the next generation of
yeah,
filmmakers because they just don't like what they're doing for some reason or another. Like they can respect it in some regards, but it's so different that they just disapprove of it. And I think that's just what we're saying. It's hard to make everybody happy. Obviously, they have their own unique, film language and what they interpret film as, but that doesn't mean that their view is definitive, if that makes sense. But
right.
I do agree that our attention spans have drastically changed over the last few decades with technology and how that's impacted our way of viewing film and television. I feel like we've gravitated more towards instant gratification. So I do agree with you in the sense of like if a movie like Blade Runner came out now, I don't know. It's shaky. It's very shaky to
Yeah,
say if it would have done well. I think as a movie it would be amazing. But then again, like you said, The Last Duel, I'll take your word for it. You said it was a really good movie. People just went and
yeah,
just didn't even like, give it the time of day.
yeah.
So it's hard to say. It's hard to say who's 100% right in this, but I do think that's interesting because I definitely felt like that while watching this movie. Like maybe he does have a little bit of a point that, our attention spans are dwindling down, day by day, slowly getting sucked up by TikTok and
Definitely.
everything in
Oh,
between.
definitely.
So yeah, TikTok's a whole, man. Just that was instant regret.
Yeah.
Instant regret. You'll watch one video and it'll be like 9 in the morning, and then by the time you're done watching these videos, it'll be like 5 p.m.
Yes.
And you're like, "What happened? Where
Yeah.
did my day go?" And then you
Yeah.
just hate life.
Yep. Yep.
Such a toxic relationship. But yeah, man, that's my 2 cents. I just wanted to throw that in there. I thought that was interesting.
Dude, you summed it up perfectly well, and I don't want to add to that because I think you worded it perfectly. The one thing that I do want to say is, Steven, I wasn't joking when I said corporate show, but I mean you are an inspiration of mine, so don't hate me.
Hands down, man.
I mean, I hope you never see this. To be quite honest, it's already out there in the ether. The androids are going to kill me, Steven. Please don't kill me. I love you, Steven. Your movies are great. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching the Press Play podcast. Before we end this off, we have a random generator that we need to do for the next movie that we're going to watch. And here's the list of what we got so far. We got Let There Be Blood, Silence, Godfather, Seven, Drive, Turbo Kid, La Strada, A Marriage Story, and Cinema Paradiso. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Oh God.
So
yeah, those are like
we're
all my choices
going
there.
to click the draw now button.
Well, we're doing this in real time. Oh,
Real
hell
time.
yeah.
Turbo Kid is the next movie that we're watching. So
let's go, dude.
I don't know what that is at all.
Robert, I'm gonna say this before we end the podcast.
Yes.
If you liked what we were talking about practical effects, you're gonna love this movie. You're gonna love this. It is one of my favorite movies. Easily top 10. Easily top 10. So I'm excited. This is awesome.
All right, awesome. All right. Well, we'll be watching Turbo Kid for the next episode of Press Play / Press Rewind. And thank you. Till next time, guys, hit the thumbs up button on the video, subscribe, comment down below, let us know what your thoughts were of Blade Runner. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can rate the podcast on there so that way we can pop back up on search feeds a lot easier. Thank you.
Dude, I'm ready for some write-ins. I need some people to write in, tell us how horrible human beings we are for our opinions, and so we can talk about that. So if you haven't, make sure do what Robert says. Send us a comment. Whatever it is, send us a mysterious package from like Omaha or something like that. I won't open it, but it's a thought that counts.
It's a thought that counts.
But yeah, awesome, man. Great
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. And Steven Spielberg, I love you. I was just kidding. Till next time. Goodbye.